Hi, I'm Katrina Mikett. I'm one of the co-curators to the show Arms Disposal, now up at Victori Mo Gallery in New York City, and I am joined by one of the 8 artists in the show, Erika Diamond. Erika has made some really powerful works of Kevlar vests that are hanging in the show. There's 3 of them, and I'm here today to learn a little bit more about her and her art process. Okay, so here we are in Victory Mo Gallery. If you walk in the front door and you take a right, there's a little front gallery, and Erica's first piece, there's 3 in total, is pretty much directly there. My artwork is to the left there, which I love the relationship to.
Yeah,
It really puts it in context. So if you could tell us a little bit about this vest,
yeah,
who it's intended for. And I'm really curious to know what was the reaction from the people when they saw it.
sure. Um, so this is the Lisa vest. I'm going to back up and just say that this is absolutely an ongoing project. So I started a couple years back, just kind of without answering all the questions yet about like who is it going to be for? Where will these live? Do they get to have them? Do they live as a collection? But I just knew that I wanted to make these vests to protect the queer people that I know and love. So this one is for my friend Lisa, who I met in Charlotte, North Carolina, and then found each other again when I went to grad school in Richmond, and just she had happened to move there as well. So we got to know each other better. I basically asked all of the participants for their measurements, their physical measurements, and I take them if they're where I am at the time, and have them fill out a pretty simple questionnaire about
Sorry,
to
overshot.
their about their personal style. Lisa is a clinical psychologist for transgender youth, who's spent most of her life in Texas. And so she described her style as a drag queen in disguise as a cowboy, or vice versa. So I definitely wanted to go with this kind of Western wear look, and ordered some pearl snaps. I used a twill weave so it would be extra shiny. Did the little front pockets, and gold piping. So she's got some flair there. So she, to me, is a really great example of somebody who's really working for her greater queer community as well, and has really been able to, save lives, essentially. So I've been focusing a lot on that, on just this kind of celebrating what these individuals do for the people that, where they live. So that this is one of the earliest ones, and then I don't know if you want to pan to another
Sure.
one.
Take a little trip through the gallery so people.
And I'll while you're doing that, I'll also say that uh, I don't usually specify like the nature of someone's queerness or their gender per se, but I think I like leaving that open too, because I don't think there has to be a queer aesthetic assigned to these, and I'm hoping as the collection continues that each person's aesthetic kind of overrides that idea of like a stereotyped vision of what these are supposed to look like. And so the J hoodie, which is on the left in the image here, is a friend of mine who I've known since high school. We did theater together. Jay is based in Chicago, and has like a pretty laid back style, like jeans, t-shirt, and a hoodie. And so I kind of knew right away that I just wanted to make something clean and simple, and like very protective for him. And he's been working for a long time. I don't remember the exact position that he has now, but starting many years ago, he was working basically administering AIDS vaccines. So again, like just saving lives every day, like you know, so I think was maybe the second one that I did, um, and just wanted to honor his very casual style.
Yeah.
This one was actually pretty difficult, speaking of the material, because of the thickness, and the way that it reacts when you cut it. When you fold the material, it's quite bulky and it doesn't really want to stay where you put it. It likes to slide around. So sewing it has some unpredictability.
Hmm. Well, it looks like you've done an amazing job to it. And the gray inside is not Kevlar.
No, so the gray is just like a soft jersey lining, that feels more like a hoodie lining.
Yeah. I,
So I really wanted it to actually be wearable, and it was like, well, it just that the feel of the Kevlar, I I felt like I just wanted to soften it a little bit.
yeah. I mean, even if no one knew anything about you as an artist or your work, I think if they saw this, just knowing that it's Kevlar, it has such larger symbolism for so much of the gun violence that we've seen in
Yeah.
the United States. I'm really glad that you made a hoodie one because I think that speaks for a lot of other people and incidences within the United States.
Yeah.
What did the person say when they saw the final product?
Um, Jay was pretty giddy about it. I mean, I think he just really loved, I mean, he knew me before I, was an artist too. So I think was just mostly people are just honored, and I didn't anticipate that I would, that this project would have that personal effect. I wanted to honor them, but I also sometimes get really detailed responses from people about, you know, how they felt safe or unsafe, at certain time, depending on their age and how, like, growing up queer might have been different for some people than others. But I mean, mostly they're pleased and sort of curious what it's going to look like, and which questions I may have, like, um,
Mhm.
glommed on to, basically, because I don't include everything that they talk about. I also ask, like, what animal do you identify with, or so um, that it's just giving me clues to come up with something that just feels right. um, and this one that you're looking at now is the axle vest. um, when I first started making these, it was during a residency at Platform in Denver, Colorado. And I was able to work with 3 interns, all of whom happened to be queer. And Axel had just basically come out with their chosen name about a couple weeks before I started the residency. So we were all trying to kind of help people um, get used to saying Axel, and they're super kick-ass, gonna take over the world. Axel was in high school when I met them, so I think in college now. But also, badass, but super generous and really kind to their peers, and um, just, ready to live life. So
It sounds like the timing of making this vest for Axel
yeah.
and Axel's own, you know, finding their name might have been like a big moment in their lives. It sounds important.
It did feel like I was kind of witnessing, yeah, an important moment, and wanted to honor that, and just and honor their specialness too.
Yeah,
um
I think what's wonderful about this project is um, this idea of building community. I know with people, not necessarily, I mean, you already know all of them, but to incorporate them into your art practice in such an endearing way under the idea of protection, but also honoring the self
yeah.
is a really powerful idea. So it's wonderful to have that aspect in the show. There's multiple dimensions I think you bring to the show, but this personal um, element to it is really important because while the show had focused a lot on like gun consumerism and gun violence and the products we use to protect us, um, you know you do bring that human element to it in a very intimate way, and I appreciate that. So thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to hear some of your own advice for people who want to make activist artwork, socially engaged artwork.
Yeah.
What tips can you share?
That's a great question. I feel like this work and some of the earlier tapestries that I started that basically are based off of this design, kind of working with gender symbols, and um, are really the beginning of my work that I see as being more overtly political. I think before now, I didn't really see my work in that way, and talked more about my experience, like my connections to other people. So it was somewhat autobiographical in the way that the vests are. So I'm new to this, I feel. I think that my advice would be to be as genuine as possible. Like if you and to draw on your own experience, because I think that's the only way you really can be genuine about it, and really dig into, why and who you're trying to help, and what change you really want to affect. And um, I think if you're just really honest about your decision making, I think that can be helpful. I think it's also good to do a little research to kind of back up um, what your what your idea is, or what you really want to go after. I tend to, like Kevlar included, I tend to often start with an interest in a material or a process, and that often guides what happens next, and why, and sort of watching things click into place. So for me, the Kevlar as an investigation just kind of made sense.
Yeah, so many of the artists in the show have an original resource or some kind of historical research components that they're working off of for just a material. You with the Kevlar, Margaret with the empty shotgun shells, um, the history of samplers. I just talked to Mima on the other show, and she looks at the history of an FBI Black Panthers coloring book, and there's just so much there that starts to inform socially engaged artwork that I totally agree with you in terms of do your research, be
Your
genuine.
research, be specific. I mean, I mentioned the Pulse nightclub shooting. I don't have a personal attachment to it, other than when I heard about it, I was in a small town, and it really occurred to me how much like it didn't actually matter to a lot of people, and that was really eye-opening for me. And I was like, I guess I'll call my friends. Like, so it affected me in its own way, but I made the project not about that, but about other people that I do have a connection to. So I think that specificity of either an event or a person or a technique will really like guide you through the message,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
and will answer those questions as you go through your process of making and unmaking, and and getting it right. But
Well, thank you so much for joining me today and telling me a little bit more about you and your artwork, and then for being in the show because it's really powerful and it wouldn't be the same without you. So thank you so much.
thank you, Katrina. It's really an honor. I love reading about the other works in the show and the other artists, and I think it's a really important show. I wish everybody could see it in person, but I commend you for trying to find different ways to make it even more accessible. So I think that's really great, and again, I'm super grateful. Thank you.
So if people wanted to learn a little bit more about you and see more of your artwork, where can they find you?
My website, it's just erikadiamond.com. I have Instagram. It's at diamond_Erika with a K, not a C. And otherwise, shows are, as they start going back out into the world again, I'll update you.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. Have a great evening, okay?
Thank you. You too.
Bye.